The phone rang twice before the secure line connected. Ibrahim didn't look at the caller ID he already knew. There was a pause, a small breath, and then the familiar Kingston cadence he'd heard only once before. The night everything went sideways. "Ibrahim," Andrew Holness said, measured but human, "I owe you an apology." It was not what anyone in his war room expected to hear at 3:14 a.m. Ouagadougou time. Screens glowed with satellite maps and trade routes. A coffee cup trembled in the air conditioning. The last time they'd spoken, Ibrahim had warned him about white-gloved hands consultants who arrive smiling with feasibility studies and leave with mineral rights and policy strings. Andrew had taken the briefing, smiled politely, and then told the press he respected diverse perspectives. 24 hours later, a British firm circulated a pilot concession memo that looked like a land grab with confetti on it. Jamaican radio hosts chewed Ibrahim's name like spice. A Jamaican senator called him dramatic. Twitter said worse. Now the Prime Minister of Jamaica exhaled into the secure line like a man who'd sprinted to catch it. "I misread your intentions," he said. "You were right to warn me. I didn't take it seriously enough. I've seen things in the last week I can't ignore. I'm inviting you to a state visit to Jamaica. I want this to be open, transparent, and honest." Ibrahim's eyes slid to the glass wall. On the other side, his security chief, Usman, was already typing. A map of the Caribbean blossomed. A flight path arced over the Atlantic like a bow. "Prime Minister," Ibrahim said, "apologies are not weakness. They are an anchor. But you must understand, if I come, I do not come to praise or to perform. I come to tell the truth. In full." There was a click on the line, faint but impossible to miss. A third breath. Someone else was there. "Do you hear that?" Andrew asked, dropping his voice. "I hear a passenger who didn't buy a ticket," Ibrahim replied. They both went quiet. Usman tapped a note to the ops team. "Triangulate." The waveform of the call formed teeth on a spectrum monitor. Andrew continued, choosing his words like stepping stones in a river. "I've been advised for years by people who didn't live our reality. Men who can recite growth rates but cannot tell me what rain sounds like on zinc roofs. We need a recalibration, and if that means someone else on this line hears, let them hear." Outside the palace, the night pulsed with generators and stray music. A muezzin's prayer hung like a ribbon before dissolving into city hum. Ibrahim thought of the letters on his desk. Miners' cooperatives asking for protective equipment, a school in Kaya asking for laptops, a farmer in Dori who'd written in thick, careful letters, "Sir, if they offered to help us, ask them to show us the help first." "You invite me to a state visit," Ibrahim said, "but I will ask 3 conditions, and they will not be negotiable." Andrew didn't hesitate. "Name them." "First," Ibrahim said, "no closed-door meetings with the consultants whose signatures are already on drafts. Every agenda item must be broadcast live. If someone disagrees, let the people see the disagreement and judge it." "Done." "Second," Ibrahim said, "security. You have your forces. I trust them. But I also want a community perimeter. Fishermen from Port Royal, teachers from Spanish Town, maroon elders from Akampong. The world must watch Jamaicans protecting their own future." There was a short silence, and then something like relief. "That can be arranged." "Third," Ibrahim said, "I bring a dossier. It names entities, some in Europe, some in the US, some hidden behind Caribbean shells that have used the region's need as leverage. If I come, I will read names aloud." The third breath on the line vanished. "Did you hear that?" Andrew whispered, startled. "I heard someone realize a storm was not forecast," Ibrahim said. Across the city of Kingston, a power hiccup dimmed a grid for 2 seconds, no more. In a glass tower by the waterfront, a man in a blue tie closed a laptop and called an overseas number. In Washington, a junior attaché's phone vibrated off a desk and he fumbled for it, eyes wide at the subject line. "Caribbean Jamaica unscheduled visit Burkina Faso." In London, a consultant stepped out of a dinner party to breathe on the curb and text, "He's really coming." "Mr. Traoré," Andrew said, voice steadier now, "I need you to understand the misunderstanding was mine. You warned me because you have scars. I dismissed you because I thought scars made a man dramatic. They make him a witness. I'm inviting you not as theater. I'm asking you to stand in Gordon House and speak. Will you stand next to me when I speak? Ibrahim asked. Yes. Will you stand next to me if I speak names you have shaken hands with? Andrew swallowed. The pause was heavy. Brave. Yes. Usman slid a folder under Ibrahim's hand. Inside were overhead shots of a hangar at Norman Manley International. In the corner, a crate with a logo nobody used officially, but everyone knew a consultancy that always arrived just in time to privatize what had just begun to work. Prime Minister, Ibrahim said, you said you saw things you can't ignore. What did you see? Andrew exhaled a laugh with no comedy. A letter. A letter drafted, listen to this phrase, to accelerate development by optimizing underutilized national assets. It was a blueprint to sell our shoreline in pieces and lease back access like we were tenants of our own coast. The signatories were not Jamaicans. Who forwarded you the letter? A friend who wants to stay a friend, Andrew said. But I'll make it public when you land. If we're going to reset, let's reset in daylight. The third breath returned, this time a voice. Low, filtered, pretending to be timid. Prime Minister Holness. It said, this is an administrative test line. Please confirm encryption. Andrew's tone sharpened on instinct. Identify yourself. The voice disconnected mid-syllable. In Kingston, a silent alarm bloomed on an intelligence console. Intercept detected. In Ouagadougou, Usman's team found the Phantom's return route bouncing through 5 countries and ending in a server once rented by a wind farm think tank that never built a turbine. Consider that your first proof, Ibrahim said. If the visit was supposed to be pageantry, someone wouldn't be frightened enough to show their shadow. Then come, Andrew said, almost eager now. Come and let them show themselves in daylight. There are moments when history turns not on speeches, but on tone. The weight of Andrew's invitation was not in his title. It was in how his voice had shed the diplomatic varnish. He sounded like a man who'd stepped outside the tall building and felt the street heat, decided it was more honest than air conditioning. 2 more conditions, Ibrahim said softly, surprising even his team. I'm listening. I want to visit Tivoli Gardens, not as a motorcade, but on foot. People remember what the state feels like when it arrives in armored vehicles. Let them remember what it sounds like when the state arrives with ears. Andrew's voice lowered. I understand. And I want to stand at the Bob Marley Museum for 1 hour without a single official word spoken. Just people. Freedom must not need microphones. On a balcony in New Kingston, a young woman who ran a small news channel on TikTok got a DM with a screenshot she didn't understand. A flight plan with a red circle. She posted it with a question mark. In 20 minutes, a hashtag nobody planned hit 100,000 views. Number Traoré in Jamaica. The comments were chaos. Aunties praying, uncles arguing, teenagers making jokes about camouflage in tropical heat. An old man typed a line that got more hearts than anything. When a man apologizes, the stories start to fix. Mr. Traoré, Andrew said, we will make it safe. Prime Minister, Ibrahim said, sometimes safety is the disguise danger wears. Make it open instead. The door opened, and a junior aide slipped Ibrahim a new sheet. It was a photo, zoomed, grainy, deceptive in its simplicity. A small cube at the edge of the airport cargo area with 4 antennas, like insect legs. Under it, a caption handwritten by an analyst, possible Stingbox IMSI catcher? They were not just listening. They were mapping phones, building a social net before the visit even existed. I'll come, Ibrahim said at last, but I won't come to your office first. I'll go to Coronation Market. I'll buy what your people buy and hear what your people hear, and then I'll come to you. Where will you stay? Andrew asked. With a family in Augusttown if they'll have me. A silence, then a laugh with softness in it. They will. Outside, the city kept breathing. At a shipping yard, a crane paused over a container painted with the flag of a country famous for consulting and famous for forgetting to pay the bill. In a small clinic, a nurse scrolled and smiled at the hashtag and whispered, "Make them talk true." In a boardroom lit too white, someone cursed and said, "We lost the initiative." "Before you hang up," Andrew said, voice formal again, "I need to say one more thing on the record, private or not. I'm sorry I treated your warning like a story. You have my respect. And you have my answer," Ibrahim said. "I accept the invitation. But understand, if the truth offends a friend, it is still the truth. If it offends a donor, it is still the truth. We will be fair. We will be exact. But we will not be careful. The line clicked, then settled. Usman gave a low whistle. "You just invited a hurricane," he said. Ibrahim smiled without joy. "No, Jamaica invited rain. We will help them choose what it grows." He stood, and the room stood with him. Orders flew like swallows, a lean advance team, no luxury convoy, translators with market slang, a small medical kit, a camera that could stream to anywhere without asking anyone's permission. In the corner, the radio crackled with an old melody. Someone always played late. Redemption, redemption, redemption. In a Kingston office, someone slid a folder into a drawer labeled Sunshine and locked it. In a London townhouse, a dinner party went quiet as a guest read a message aloud, and another guest pretended his wine was interesting. In a Miami condo with a view of water no one swam in, a call went to voicemail and stayed there. Hours later, two men walked along the Kingston waterfront at dawn, arguing softly in suits about whether to cancel their public-private partnerships summit. They didn't know a woman with a camera phone was walking the other way, catching their faces in the wide morning light and posting it with a caption that said, simply, "Dem frayed." In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim pressed his palm to the window and felt the heat of his own city remind him who he was. The difference between being invited and being expected is the difference between ceremony and consequence. He chose consequence. On his desk, the dossier lay open to a page with 4 names and 1 shell company. He picked up a pen and wrote a 5th name, someone who had just revealed himself by breathing on a line that wasn't his. Nobody expected his reply to be an acceptance with conditions that could break glass. Nobody expected him to put the market before the mansion. Nobody expected Andrew to say yes to all of it, not with the watchers listening. But the watchers had already made their mistake. They forgot Jamaica is loud. They forgot West Africa is louder. They forgot that apologies, when real, turn into engines. By afternoon, the first flight manifest was filed. It was short. It did not include lobbyists. It did include a nurse, a teacher, a fisherman who'd never left West Africa, and a maroon elder who had never flown but said yes because his grandfather told him once that the sea is only a road with more patience. At sunset, when the line of the Sahel swallowed the sun whole and the first stars pushed their small needles through the cloth of night, Ibrahim sat again and read the last page of the dossier. He closed it, as if closing a chapter old enough to vote. Then he wrote a sentence on a blank sheet in a handwriting his mother could still recognize. "When we land as if the island belongs to the people, not to the paperwork." He put down the pen, nodded to Usman, and let the room exhale. Somewhere above the Atlantic, a flight that had not been scheduled yet took shape in air no one can see. And in Kingston, a power that had always been there but seldom given a microphone began to hum, like bass through concrete, like truth warming its voice. The announcement leaked before it could be scripted. No polished communique from Kingston, no embargoed press release, no neat soundbite crafted by foreign advisors. Instead, a shaky voice note recorded by a customs officer at Norman Manley International slipped through WhatsApp groups and crossed oceans in hours. "Me swear, me just see the manifest Burkina Faso leader coming here. Dem say him name Ibrahim Traoré. No delegation like dem foreign ministers, real grassroots people. Nurse, fisherman, even a maroon elder. Dis no normal." By sunrise, taxis in Halfway Tree were already arguing about it. "If him brave enough fee walk Coronation Market, me wan see it," one driver said, gripping his steering wheel like a pulpit. Another shook his head. "Demago set trap fee him. Me na trust dem foreign investors we always hang round government yard." The conversation spilled onto radio, Twitter, TikTok, spreading faster than officials could type no comment. In Gordon House, Prime Minister Andrew Holness faced his cabinet. Some wore expressions of disbelief, others of calculation. One minister slammed a folder on the table. "You gave him free conditions? Do you realize what this means? He will stand in our parliament and call names we still dine with." Andrew kept his voice calm, though his chest hammered. "Then maybe it is time those names are spoken. If our alliances are built on secrets, what kind of sovereignty is that?" A silence lingered, then another minister whispered, Washington is already calling. London, too. They're asking if this is coordinated. Andrew adjusted his tie. Tell them it is coordinated with the people. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim prepared in a way that looked nothing like diplomacy. He refused the luxury jet offered by a Gulf ally. Instead, he requested a standard military transport, stripped of insignia, outfitted with basic seating. When his aides protested, he cut them short. We are not flying to Jamaica as tourists of power. We are flying as witnesses. If we look untouchable, they will treat us like a show. If we look ordinary, they will have to decide if they want to touch the ordinary. Usman, his security chief, frowned at the manifest. A fisherman? A school teacher? You're placing civilians into a firestorm. Ibrahim's gaze was steady. They are the firestorm. Do you think consultants and bankers fear generals? No. They fear mothers who can explain interest rates to children. They fear fishermen who can explain contracts to dock workers. That's why they must come. Still, shadows moved quicker than plans. In Miami, a retired intelligence officer received a midnight call from a number he hadn't seen in years. The African boy is flying to Jamaica, the voice said. If he stands there and names corporations, you realize the precedent? A prime minister humiliated on his own soil? Stop it. The officer rubbed his temples. Stop it. How? Assassination? That island will burn if you try. Not assassination, containment. His plane must never land. Make it technical, weather, mechanical failure, routing delays, anything. 2 days before departure, radar technicians in Dakar noticed a sudden rerouting request filed under Burkina Faso's call sign. Usman intercepted it, an order claiming maintenance concerns required the aircraft to land in Miami before continuing. He burst into Ibrahim's office, tossing the printout on the desk. They're already playing with the flight path. Ibrahim studied it, then smiled grimly. Then we will file no flight plan at all. We will arrive as fishermen arrive. Only the sea knows. Word spread among his chosen companions. The maroon elder, a man with silver hair and a voice like gravel, chuckled when he heard. Good. My ancestors never filed flight plans when they crossed seas either. They just sailed until the ancestors told them to dock. Back in Jamaica, Andrew sat alone one evening, staring at the national flag through his office window. His phone buzzed an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Prime Minister, a voice said. Clipped? Foreign. We strongly advise you reconsider giving that man a platform. If you proceed, funding commitments will be reviewed. Certain loans may suddenly face obstacles. Andrew clenched his jaw. Jamaica is not for sale. The voice chuckled. Everything is for sale. Some just cost more. The line cut. Andrew sat frozen. He realized that inviting Ibrahim was not just about apology. It had become a declaration. By dawn, he issued a coded order. Parliament staff must prepare for a special session, but details were to remain sealed. He could feel the walls closing in, but he would not retreat. In downtown Kingston, whispers grew. Street artists painted murals of Traoré's face next to Bob Marley's, underlining the words, Truth Cyan Dead. Vendors shouted over the noise of buses. Traoré come and fi market, me tell ya. And yet, not everyone celebrated. At an upscale hotel near New Kingston, executives met in a locked conference room. A projection glowed on the wall, an image of Ibrahim in fatigues, standing before cheering crowds in Ouagadougou. One man in a tailored suit jabbed his finger at the screen. If this narrative spreads that Africa is resisting us, that the Caribbean welcomes him, our projects collapse. We must discredit him before he lands. Find scandal, find rumor, find anything. Another, calmer, replied, if scandal fails, chaos succeeds. A market riot, perhaps. Make him look like the spark. They clinked glasses of expensive rum. But beyond their walls, the people had already claimed the story. Children practiced chants they'd seen on TikTok. Elders spoke of Garvey, of Nanny, of resistance carried in the blood. Young journalists pooled funds to live stream every second of Traoré's arrival. The stage was no longer controlled by politicians or investors. It belonged to anticipation, to suspicion, to hope. And somewhere over the Atlantic, in the belly of a transport plane not yet filed in any system, Ibrahim Traoré closed his eyes and whispered, We land as if the island belongs to the people. Nobody knew that an unmarked cargo crate, shipped the same night from London to Kingston, already carried equipment designed to intercept every phone in a 5-mile radius. The battle would not begin when he landed. It had already begun. The night was ink black over the Atlantic. The military transport shuddered in the crosswinds, its engines humming like a tired choir. Inside, Ibrahim sat in a jump seat, his camouflage jacket draped over his shoulders. No luxury cushions, no polished cabin walls, just exposed rivets, cargo nets, and the smell of aviation fuel. Beside him, the maroon elder gripped a carved staff he had insisted on carrying. The fisherman dozed with his cap over his eyes, while the schoolteacher scribbled notes by flashlight, drafting what she called questions for Parliament. They looked less like a delegation and more like a family traveling with secrets. Usman leaned in. We've jammed their trackers. For now, they don't know which route we took. But once we near Jamaica, they'll know. Ibrahim nodded. Let them know. If truth must land in daylight, let it land with noise. Halfway across the ocean, turbulence shook the fuselage. The teacher's pen scratched across the page. The elder closed his eyes and muttered an old maroon prayer about storms that cannot break a canoe built with honesty. Ibrahim listened, feeling the words steady the cabin more than the pilot's corrections did. Hours later, Kingston stirred before dawn. Soldiers at Norman Manley International checked the perimeter with unusual urgency. Not all of them were relaxed. Some whispered that they had been ordered to reroute Traoré's plane once it appeared, but others, quietly loyal to Holness's latest turn, promised themselves they would not obey. In a nearby warehouse, the unmarked crate from London had been opened. Inside was a portable surveillance tower, antennas, receivers, processors, all designed to hijack phone signals and filter conversations. The men assembling it wore polo shirts, not uniforms, and spoke with clipped accents. Once he arrives, every word, every message, will flow to us first, one said. Yet across Kingston, people had already built defenses without realizing it. Vendors at Coronation Market charged their phones, promising to stream live. Taxi drivers cleaned windshields, planning to honk their horns in unison when the convoy passed. Street musicians tuned guitars and drums. Jamaica was preparing, but not as officials expected. It was preparing like a festival, like a trial, like both at once. At 8:12 a.m., radar screens in Kingston lit up. Inbound, unidentified transponder, a technician called. The supervisor frowned. That's him. The tower operator whispered, should we scramble clearance? But the technician had already pulled out his phone and texted his sister, him Landon, tell everybody. Within minutes, the city buzzed. Church bells rang early. Social media caught fire. Numbered Traoré in Jamaica trended with videos of children painting flags on their cheeks. No official announcement could contain it. The plane descended. Windows rattled in Rockfort, and dogs barked along the shoreline. Then, against every attempt to divert it, the aircraft touched down on the tarmac. Wheels screeched, brakes roared, and a ripple of disbelief spread through the airport staff. The cargo door opened slowly, creaking like an old hymn. The first to step down was not Ibrahim but the fisherman, blinking in the tropical sun, holding a bundle of nets he insisted on carrying as proof of who he was. Behind him came the teacher with her notebook, then the maroon elder, staff tapping the steps like punctuation. And then Ibrahim appeared, camouflage jacket, beret tilted, eyes locked on the horizon. Cameras clicked like hailstones, and live streams exploded with viewers. But just as the crowd began to cheer, the first twist struck. A sudden blackout rippled through the airport. Screens went dark. Security radios crackled. The surveillance tower in the warehouse blinked off. For 20 seconds, Kingston's main airport had no power. Panic rippled. Was it sabotage or just an overworked grid? In that darkness, Ibrahim raised his voice. Do not fear the silence. It means the truth is arriving faster than their machines can handle. The crowd roared back, as if his words alone lit the runway. Then, the lights returned, brighter than before. But now the people had already decided the blackout was not fear. It was omen. Andrew Holness, watching from a secured window in the terminal, felt his throat tighten. He had expected cheers, maybe protests, but not this sudden electricity that turned one man's arrival into prophecy. Prime Minister. an aide whispered nervously. "The donors are furious. They say the visit is already destabilizing." Andrew shook his head slowly. "It isn't destabilizing. It is revealing." Yet even as he spoke, his phone vibrated. A message flashed from a number marked "Private Channel." "Do not let him speak at Parliament. This is your last chance to control the narrative." Andrew pocketed the phone without reply. His decision had been made the night he apologized. On the tarmac, Ibrahim paused. He knelt and touched the Jamaican soil, whispering something nobody caught. Then he stood and raised a fist, not clenched in anger, but lifted as if offering something invisible to the sky. The people shouted back words that startled even themselves. "Truth, truth, truth." But in the shadows of the terminal, a man in a suit muttered into an earpiece. Phase 2. If he marches into the market, make it chaos. The images must not look like liberation. They must look like disorder. Unbeknownst to both Ibrahim and Andrew, the real test of the visit would not be in Parliament or Gordon House. It would be in the heart of Coronation Market, where truth and sabotage would collide in front of the world. And the world was already watching. The convoy was unlike any Kingston had ever seen. Not armored SUVs, not tinted glass, just a line of buses borrowed from the army, their paint still scuffed from desert patrols. At Ibrahim's insistence, the windows were left uncovered. The fishermen sat by one, waving to roadside vendors. The teacher clutched her notebook. The maroon elder tapped his staff against the floor like a heartbeat. Crowds lined the route from Norman Manley International into the city. Taxi drivers leaned on their horns in rhythm. School children clapped hands. Vendors shouted blessings. Even skeptics came out, craning necks to glimpse the man they had heard about in voice notes and murals. Inside Gordon House, ministers watched the live stream on their phones, some hiding their screens under folders. The chants of "truth, truth" drifted through open windows, making speeches impossible. At the edge of Coronation Market, the buses stopped. Ibrahim insisted the rest of the way be walked. Usman's jaw tightened. "This is the risk," he muttered. "It is the point," Ibrahim replied, stepping into the noise of the market. Instantly, the place erupted. Vendors thrust bags of yam and breadfruit into his hands. Women ululated. Children swarmed to touch his jacket. The air smelled of jerk smoke. Sweat and fruit ripening in the Sunday cameras rose like a forest, broadcasting every second. But the saboteurs were already moving. 3 men in plain clothes, placed by the executives who had met in the hotel, blended into the crowd. Each carried a hidden charge. Smoke grenades designed to cause panic. Their instructions were simple. Ignite them when Ibrahim was deep in the market. Turn order into chaos. Make him look like the spark of unrest. As Ibrahim greeted a fruit seller, the first plume of smoke hissed into the air. Screams cut the chant short. A second grenade rolled under a vendor's cart, belching yellow fog. Panic spread, people tripping over stalls, produced scattering across the ground. Usman's hand flew to his pistol, but Ibrahim raised his arm. "No weapons. Listen." He strode into the haze, his outlines swallowed by smoke. Cameras caught flashes of him, half visible like a figure in prophecy. He grabbed the nearest trembling child, lifted him above the crowd, and shouted in a voice that cut through the confusion. "Do not run. This is not fire. It is fear pretending to be fire. Look at me stand." The child's calmness rippled outward. Mothers clutched children tighter. Vendors steadied their carts. Slowly, the panic stilled. People realized the smoke burned eyes, but not flesh. It was trickery, not danger. The saboteurs tried to slip away, but the maroon elder saw. His staff cracked against the cobblestones as he shouted, "These are not market men. Hold them." Hands grabbed wrists, legs, collars. The crowd surged with fury. The 3 saboteurs were dragged before Ibrahim, their pockets spilling more grenades. "Who sent you?" Usman barked. They kept silent, eyes darting. Ibrahim raised his voice again. "Look at them. They were paid to make you believe your own market is dangerous. They wanted your fear to be their profit." The crowd roared in anger, but Ibrahim lifted a palm. "Do not harm them. Let the world see what they tried. Do not give them the gift of violence. Give them the gift of exposure." Phones recorded every word. Within minutes, clips flooded social media. Traoré saves child in smoke. Saboteurs caught in market. Truth stronger than fear. Andrew Holness watched from a screen in Gordon House, sweat rolling down his temples. A minister whispered urgently, "You must distance yourself. Denounce him before this spins further." But Andrew shook his head. "No. He is proving something we forgot, that the people know the difference between fear and fire. I will not denounce that." On the market's edge, the maroon elder raised his staff high. "We march to Parliament now. Let every street hear what nearly silenced us." The crowd moved like a wave, smoke still curling behind them. The saboteurs, held firmly but unharmed, were pushed to the front as evidence. Drums began to pound. Voices rose in chants again. What had been meant as chaos became momentum. In the hotel conference room uptown, the executives stared at the live stream, pale-faced. "They flipped it," one muttered. "He turned sabotage into theater, worse into victory." The calmest among them spoke through clenched teeth. "Then we move to phase 3. If truth cannot be stopped by fear, we will try temptation." But temptation would prove just as dangerous. For now, Ibrahim marched at the head of thousands toward Gordon House, smoke-stained but unbroken, carrying the child on his shoulders. And the chant grew louder, no longer just truth. Now it carried a second word, heavier, older, unstoppable: freedom. The march reached Gordon House like a storm carrying sunlight instead of rain. Thousands pressed against barricades, voices thundering, "Truth! Freedom!" The saboteurs, their heads lowered in shame, were paraded at the front, living proof that shadows had tried to steal daylight. Inside, Parliament was in uproar. Ministers argued, some demanding the session be cancelled, others whispering of international consequences. Andrew Holness sat alone at the head of the chamber, his hands clasped, his jaw tight. Every phone buzzed with warnings, from embassies, from investors, from men who never stood in the sun but always pulled the strings. Then the doors opened. Ibrahim entered, not with guards in formation, but with the fisherman, the teacher, the maroon elder, and the child he had carried from the smoke. The chamber froze. His presence was both foreign and familiar, an African leader walking like a market man, not a monarch. "I stand here," Ibrahim began, voice echoing without microphone, "because truth walked through the market and did not stumble. I stand here because a prime minister admitted he was wrong, and that courage deserves an answer, not silence." He reached into his bag and pulled out a thick folder. Papers rustled like wings. "This is the dossier. These are the names of corporations and banks who treat nations like fruit to be peeled. They speak of development, but what they mean is division. They speak of partnership, but what they mean is possession." Gasps rippled as he read the first name, a company with deep ties to London, already negotiating a long lease of Jamaica's shoreline. He read another, a consultancy based in Washington, caught drafting optimization contracts that stripped communities of land. With each name, ministers shifted uneasily. Some recognized signatures. Cameras streamed it live. Outside, the crowd erupted with each revelation. Inside, Andrew Holness rose to his feet. "I invited him," he said firmly, silencing the murmurs. "Because leadership means hearing the truth even when it cuts. We cannot pretend anymore that we are blind." But before the applause could settle, a phone rang sharply on a minister's desk. The screen lit with a foreign number. He answered hesitantly, then paled. Slowly, he passed it to Andrew. Holness lifted the phone. A cold voice crackled. "Prime Minister, you are making a mistake. If this continues, funding stops. Your economy will drown." The chamber went silent. Cameras still streamed. Andrew looked at the phone, then at Ibrahim, then at his own people watching worldwide. "My people have survived slavery, hurricanes, colonialism, and hunger," Andrew said, voice rising. "We will survive without your loans. Jamaica is not for sale." He slammed the phone down, and the chamber shook with applause. Ibrahim smiled faintly, but he was not finished. He held up the dossier again. "If you want to know who tried to frighten the market, who sent the saboteurs, who built the machines to steal your conversations, look at these names. But do not only look with anger. Look with clarity. Their weapon is your silence. Break it." The teacher beside him raised her notebook. "Then let us begin with questions. How many schools could have been built with the money paid to these men?" The fisherman lifted his nets. "How many harbors could have been cleaned instead of leased?" The maroon elder tapped his staff. How many ancestors must we summon before we admit the island belongs to its people? The chamber erupted, not in chaos, but in awakening. Ministers stood, some in shame, some in defiance, but all exposed. Outside, the chants reached a fever pitch. Truth, freedom, Jamaica, Africa. At that moment, Andrew walked to Ibrahim and clasped his hand. Cameras flashed like lightning. From this day, Andrew declared, Jamaica will not walk alone. If Africa stands for truth, Jamaica will stand beside it. But the final twist came not from them, it came from the crowd. A live streamer shoved her phone toward the sky. Look, she shouted. Over Kingston, a drone swarm buzzed machines programmed to broadcast counter-narratives, flooding feeds with doctored videos. But instead of confusion, the people roared louder. The drone signals were jammed by engineers loyal to the movement, who had been quietly working from the university campus. One by one, the drones fell from the sky, clattering like defeated insects onto rooftops and roads. The crowd's chant shook the city, reaching across oceans. On Twitter, hashtags merged. Number Traoré in Jamaica. Number Truth Freedom. Number Jamaica Africa 1. Andrew leaned toward Ibrahim. You warned me about the white-gloved hands. I didn't believe you. Now I see. From this day, Jamaica chooses vigilance. And vigilance, Ibrahim said, is the first act of freedom. By sunset, Kingston was transformed. Vendors gave food freely to strangers. Street musicians played outside Gordon House. The captured saboteurs sat in custody, awaiting trial, not lynching. Ministers drafted emergency motions to audit foreign contracts. And in the quiet of his hotel room later that night, Andrew wrote a note that he left unsigned on his desk. History will remember today not as the day Jamaica was threatened, but as the day Jamaica answered. Ibrahim, meanwhile, sat with the maroon elder on the balcony, watching the city hum. The elder whispered, "This is only beginning." Ibrahim nodded. Yes, but beginnings are the hardest victories. And though the shadows had failed, they were not gone. They would regroup. But for that night, at least, truth had won. Jamaica had stood. And Africa had found not just an ally, but a mirror. The world would not forget the image. Ibrahim Traoré, smoke-stained, child on his shoulders, dossier in his hand, and Andrew Holness at his side. Nobody had expected his reply. Nobody expected Jamaica's answer. And yet, in that shared defiance, both nations rewrote the script the world had written for them.